Good morning everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Lauren and today I am filming a very exciting video of making something with my sewing machine for myself. So yesterday I worked on this tote bag. I don't know if you guys can truly see how fantastic it is, but it is a quilted on the outside tote bag with 30-inch handles that are perfect for throwing over your shoulder like that. I don't know if you guys can see anything right now. It's beautiful, and then on the inside, again, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but it has pockets on both sides. Both of them have some bigger pockets for some bigger items, and then a mini pocket attached in the brown lining fabric as well for some smaller items. So I originally made this tote bag as a little bit of a tester. I also kind of made it for myself because it was a tester. I wasn't sure if I was gonna absolutely fail it, so it would end up just being my tote bag because it wasn't good, or if I do really nicely with it, then I would sell it. So I think it turned out absolutely fantastic. I realized while I was making it and nearing the end of making it, when I sort of saw it in its almost complete capacity, I realized that I kind of want one that's a little wider and maybe in a fabric that's a little more professional, and then I would be able to take it to work. I have a few fabrics that I could choose from. I'm gonna go and grab some of them and show you so that we can see what we would like to do with it. Okay guys, so just a reminder of what this bag is. It's this beautiful floral fabric on the outside. The lighting isn't too good here, but then it's got this brown inside. So that's what we've already got, which means it could definitely be an idea to just do the exact same fabric. And then I was thinking I could do a different lining fabric and do the grey, or I can go back to doing the brown and just do the exact same bag that I did earlier. My other idea is this yellow abstract sort of pattern with the bees on the outside. My only worry with this one is it might get a bit dirty. I do love this fabric. It's actually a corduroy. I don't know if you can see the texture there, but it's actually a corduroy. And then I have this green fabric that I think would work really well as a lining. I'm not too sure though, because it is different flowers and it's very white. And then my other option was to go with this fabric, which I think is absolutely beautiful. My only problem with this though is that I'm not actually that much of a cat person. I do love to read, but I'm not that much of a cat person. So if I went with this one though, I would definitely go the same brown lining that I used yesterday. They're my main options that I'm looking at the moment. I am very tempted to do this bee one. I think the bee one is sparking out to me the most. Also, if you guys can hear crows while I'm talking, they are always in this tree outside my business area. So they're always there. It's really annoying. Out of all the wildlife I would want to hear every day of my life, crows are not one of them. I'm gonna go with the bees and this lining fabric. I'm excited, but I'm really nervous because I think it took about 3 hours yesterday to make the other one, and this one's gonna be that little bit bigger, so it might end up taking that little bit longer. Let's get started on it right now and we should be done within the next few hours. To quickly give you guys an idea of the other things that I'll be using, I've got this thinner iron-on interfacing. It's got some padding to it, but it's kind of thin. But I'm going to be cutting some 4-inch by 30-inch strips of this for the handles. We're going to need 2 of those. So I think I'm going to make the handles out of the outer fabric, the same as I did the first bag. Then I'm going to cut these pieces, both the internal and the external fabric, for the whole bag. I'm going to cut the height at 16.5 inches. I think I'll cut the width of the fabric panels to 20 inches. And then, as I said, the 30-inch by 4-inch handles, 16.5-inch by 20-inch bag panels on both the inner and the outer fabrics. And then we'll see what we have left after doing that, and I'll gather the pockets from there. Let's cut this fabric. got everything cut up. If you guys can think back to when I was showing you the original bag, it had the pockets on the inside made with the external fabric, and then it had mini pockets on those pockets made with the inner fabric, so there was a nice contrast there. I figured out that I don't love the way that I ended up doing those pockets, so what I'm going to do instead is not really worry about the pockets at all. There was a little part of me that still wanted a mini pocket, but I think I'm just going to not bother. Anything small I have to put in that pocket, I might just make myself a mini pouch instead, and I think that'll work out just fine. So I've done the straps in the external fabric, and I also have the 2 strips of the iron-on wadding for those straps. Then in terms of all of the cut fabric, we have the external pieces here, the inner pieces here, and I think they look really good together, and I'm really excited for how it's going to turn out. And then these do need to be ironed, but I've got 2 pocket pieces. One is a little bit taller than the other by just an inch, just so that there's a little bit of variety in the bag, because I think that that's fun. I could have made them the same size, but I just didn't want to. And then the last thing we have is the big pieces of wadding. I believe that this one is a polyester wadding that is 210 GSM. It's really nice and thick, and I love it for quilting stuff. So I've cut it just 1/2 inch bigger on each side so that it's super easy to quilt these bags. But yeah, that's going to be a step that we get to later. For now, what I'm going to do is iron the pockets, iron down the hem at the top. I'll show you as I iron them how I'm ironing them, and then as I sew them onto the lining pieces, I'll also show you how I do that.
So the first thing I'm going to do in the time-lapse section of this video right now is ironing on the interfacing on these handles. Then you'll see that I grab the pockets and I actually iron them flat as well, so that it's super easy to do the hems on them. I'm measuring out 1/4 inch here and measuring out another 1/2 inch, as you'll see in just a second when I zoom in. You can see there that I've done the 1/4 inch, and I'm doing the second fold over with the 1/2 inch so that there's a really smooth folded hem there. I'm also going to be pinning that so that it's super easy to sew it all together in just a second. Once the pockets are all pinned and ready to go, I move back to the straps, and I'm just pinning them in half with right sides together, so there's not very much movement when I'm actually sewing them with the machine. Then we can move straight onto the sewing machine, and I start with sewing the straps up 1/4 inch from each edge of the strap on both sides, and of course I'm doing both straps. Then I can head onto the pockets, and I sew super close to the folded edge that we made so that we have a smooth and clean hem on the top of the pocket.
Alright everybody, I sewed up these strips. Of course they're inside out at the moment, so what I'm going to do is spin them right side out and then do a line of stitching about 1/4 inch in on both sides, and the handles will be all done. My camera battery is very close to running out of charge, so what I'm thinking of doing is getting these handles done and then grab my second battery. Once I've eaten lunch, I'll come back out here. I'll show you how the handles look, and then I'll show you how we're going to do the pockets.
So guys, as promised, here is what the handles ended up looking like. The stitching turned out a little bit wonky, but I think they look really good in total. And I think, yeah, I'm really proud of how they turned out and how they're looking so far. Let's move on to the next step of this project. Okay guys, so I have my lining fabrics over here, and I've got them sitting over here because we're going to do these pockets next. So as you guys would have seen, I sewed up these pockets, just the hem of them. I folded it down 1/4 inch and then did another fold of 1/2 inch and then stitched along the edge here. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to give it an iron over. I'm working around the camera right now, which is a bit awkward, but it's okay. I'm going to give it an iron, and then I'm going to work from this angle. So if you see my hands coming in from this side, it's because I'm just going to work from here. Spin it so that it's easier to work with for myself. And what I'm going to do is fold over about 1/4 inch or so, and I'm going to grab the iron and iron this folded edge down. Of course you can grab a hemming ruler and set it for 1/4 inch on the hemming ruler and measure it as you go. That would be what you do if you want this to be perfect. I'm pretty good at eyeing out 1/4 inch. See, that's where it ends there, so I'm pretty on the spot. That's a bit short there, so I can push that in and re-iron over that, and everything else is good. So I'll just iron that again and ensure that it's really flat. I'm going to do the same on the other side now, so flipping it over and making sure that it's about 1/4 inch. And then next step is obviously the bottom. I'm just going to go over all the edges again. Make sure that everything is super flat. Here's where we get into the fun part. All I want to do is just fold it back out, fold this top corner here in, and then fold it back over so that we have that super clean tucked edge there. And then I'm just going to really carefully, be super careful not to burn your fingers, but I'm gonna smash that with some heat. And then when I take it off, again, try not to burn yourself when touching recently ironed fabric. It can burn, but I'm just going to pin that in right there. That is one corner already done. So this is that bottom corner now, as you guys can see. I'm just gonna, one more flatten. I'm gonna spin it like this so that I can see it better. Hopefully you guys can see it too. And again, just folding it back, tucking in that corner, and then folding it once more, and then heating it really well without burning your fingers. I'm going to do these two other corners here, and then I'm going to work on this other pocket as well, and then I will come back to you and we'll measure it up onto the lining fabric over here and sew it on. The crows are out, so sorry if you hear them again, but I got both of the pockets pinned on, and as you can kind of see, let me see if I can zoom you guys in, the corners of these pockets just look really good with that fold technique that I showed you, as well as the top ones here. And when you open up the pocket, they'll be nice and tucked away. So I'm going to stitch along the edge of this pocket pretty close to the outside, knowing that it's only folded in about 1/4 inch. Let me just sew this up now, and then we'll start on the fun part, which is quilting the outer side of the bag. You can't really see it, guys, but I did just sew these two panels together after stitching on the pockets. So you can see how great it looks. I'm really excited about the inside of this. I think it looks great. I think the pockets turned out awesome, and that's what it'll sort of look like on the inside. I sewed around all the edges and then left maybe a 4-inch gap. You could leave it a bit smaller, but I like it to be a lot easier to flip inside out once we sew the outside panels and the inner panels together. So I've just left a gap at the bottom. Highly recommend. You can leave it on the sides if you want to, or when you're sewing it together around the hem, you can leave a gap on the hem as well. But I think the bottom looks best, personal opinion, but That's what I like to do. Otherwise, this inside panel is all done. Let us turn our attention towards these outside panels now. So all we actually have to do for these pieces is make sure it is flush against the lines on the bottom and the sides. And then what I'm going to do is grab this ruler, which measures from top to bottom of this cutting board. It's actually my only ruler that goes from top to bottom. And then I'm going to use the air erasing Sew Line pen. Comes in pink ink. It is running out of ink a little bit, so I go over the lines pretty detailed, but this is quite a light fabric. But I'm going to measure 1 inch from each side. So it's going to be 1 inch here and then 2 inches from there. And then that should mean that we should have 1 inch on the other side as well, which hopefully should lead to the perfect panel. I'm going to then have our wadding put on the back side of the panel with the lines on the front side of the panel, and then sew along the front side of the panel where I can follow the lines, and that will be our quilted panel. That's explanation enough, and you can watch me get it all done, and then I'll come back when those panels are done, or I might come back after I sew the outer edge of both the pieces together. So once it's quilted, I will put right sides together of the outer panels and sew around the whole edge. And unlike the lining panel, I won't be leaving a 4-inch gap at the bottom. I'll just be sewing it fully together.
It's been a while since I left. Nobody knows where I went, but I think I found my place.
Alright everybody, we have our inner layer sewn up and we have our outer layer all quilted on the inside and then sewn together on the edges. And I did happen to put a tag on the inside here, so that's nice. So now I'm going to lay them out. I've already got the lining fabric laid out, and I'm going to cut 3.5 inches through the side and 3.5 inches up.
Don't worry, I'm doing just fine out in the islands where the time goes a little.
Okay, that's one side done. I'm going to do the other corner on this one here. Then I'm going to roll out the quilted panels on the other side and do the exact same thing.
More my pace. I've been floating coast to coast, Bahamas to Puerto Rico. It don't matter if I'm lost because I know.
It's pretty difficult to see what I'm doing in these next clips, so I thought I'd do another voiceover just to talk you through it. But after cutting out those 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch squares at the bottom corners of the fabric, I pull the side seam and the bottom seam to meet each other in the middle to box out the bottom edge. You can't really see it on the fluffy one, but in the lining here you can kind of see what I do a little bit more, even though it's sped up. Then I'm flipping the lining right side out and putting it inside the outer fabric, and then pinning it at the two hems and inserting the handles. I put the loop of the handle inside the bag and then pinned the ends of the handle along the inside edge of the seam. And for reference, I'm placing those handles 5 inches from the side seam of the outer panels of fabric. Of course, then once the lining and the handles were pinned into place, I hopped back onto my sewing machine and sewed around the whole top edge of the bag.
Alright everybody, I'm just popping in quickly to potentially have to let you guys know that some of the footage might be missing from this video because I have been having a bit of trouble with my camera cutting off because of the heat in this room. Now, I didn't think it was that hot in here, but it just keeps cutting off saying that the camera's overheating. So I was thinking of just sewing up the next step and not filming that for you guys, but I will let you know how I did it afterwards so that there is absolutely no confusion in this tutorial of how to sew this tote bag. Also, there is parrots right above me here in the tree and they are ripping off the gum nuts and obviously dropping them when they're done. And it is creating some awfully loud noises that are not really the best thing for you guys to listen to. I might leave like one in just so you know how loud it is. This not film. That's also another problem. So I'm gonna try and film as much as I can. I'm gonna sit my camera out of the sun underneath one of the desks so that it can hopefully cool down for a little bit, and then I should be able to film the rest of this video afterwards. Okay guys, if you hear some huffing and puffing in the background, it's my dog. I've just let her in and she is still a little bit hypo. So you might hear that as well as a dog barking in the background, gum nuts being dropped on the roof, crows squawking. There's a lot of noises happening right now, but let's just try and finish this bag. What I did was I flipped the internal layer right side out and put it inside the external layer so that I could sew the correct sides together. Once they were together, I put the handles, as you will see when I flip it, I put the handles in and I measured them in at 5 inches from the edge of the outer fabric. They're 5 inches in on both sides, and obviously there were 2 handles, one on one side and one on the other. So this is where the little gap that we left earlier comes in handy because we can reach on in to the inside. I like to grab it from the bottom because that just makes life easier, and then pull it up and through, and we start to see it poking through. Now I won't talk while I get the rest of this out because it is a little bit difficult. As I said, I leave a 4-inch hole. Some people leave a smaller hole than this, but I find 4 inches is still quite difficult, so you might want to leave even more. Once I've got it through and looking like this, I again stick my hand in to the little hole and I pop out all these corners. I just use my finger. There is tools that you can get to help really get them out really smoothly. I just do it like this because I think it looks fine. And this is where you see those cutouts that we made are now boxed out on the bottom, which is really nice. And then I just come up to the top as well and make sure that the lining fabric also has those corners pretty boxed out. They don't need to be perfect. And now this hole that I have here, I'm just going to sew it up. I'm going to make sure that I fold in all the edges. I did rip a little bit of thread as I was pulling it through because I wasn't very gentle, so make sure that you are more gentle than me. But yeah, I'm going to fold in the edges and sew along this edge now. So guys, I've sewn up this bottom section. Now I'm just going to tuck this lining right on into the outside layer. And this is where you can see it really forming a proper bag. And to be completely honest guys, I'm loving the way it's looking, but we've got one last final step, and that is to do a top stitch layer along the top here. I'm only going to do one, but you could definitely do 2. But yeah, I'm going to tuck it in so that when I look at it from the top, I can see a little bit of the outer layer. But yeah, let's sew this up now.
Just riding waves, 'cause I know no matter where the tide goes, the sun is...
I think we're done. Alright everybody, we are officially done with this beautiful bag. I am feeling so proud of this. I don't know if I'm getting a very good shot of it, so I might take some broader shots for you guys so that you can see the full thing in its full glory. But I'm really happy to have it done. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me take some good clips of this and then I will say goodbye.
On my face, searching for treasures in my mind. I know I'll find it, 'cause the islands are showing me the way. I've been floating coast to coast, from Cuba to Mexico. It don't matter if I'm lost.
Alright guys, I think it's safe to say that the end of this bag means the end of this video. The sun is just peeking around the corner and I don't want it to make this lighting go crazy right now. So I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the content of this video, then please make sure to like it. Comment down below if you have any other ideas of things that you would like me to show you how to make. This was a really fun and exciting project for me and I'm really excited to use it because I think it is the perfect size for what I was hoping for and I think it will work perfectly for what I want. I will be taking this to work with me tomorrow. I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited about starting a new job, but that is a conversation for another time. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or night wherever you are in the world, and goodbye.
It don't matter if I'm lost because I know. It don't matter if I'm lost because I know. When I'm with you, I'm home.